I've been blogging for 10 years. In the thousands of posts I've written for my blog and for clients and for companies I've worked for, I picked up a few things about writing and editing and blogging, and I picked up a few things about marketing, specifically branding. I'm not an expert in branding, but when you blog that long a time, you pick up a few things about it. So I want to share some of those insights in case you're working on your blogs for 2016. This is the art of the brand, what your blog needs and deserves. I'm Wade Kwon. I'm a consultant based in Birmingham. It's my pleasure to be back in Biloxi today. The last time I was down here, I think it was like 2008, I was working with Hands-On Gulf Coast, which I think they had just recently formed at that point. And I was on a week-long volunteer service week with them after Katrina. So it's nice to be back under happier circumstances. My Twitter name's @WadeOnTweets. If you tweet out any and all this presentation, that's fine by me, or share it on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever social media channel you want to. And all the slides that you see, I'll email them to you. So at the end, just give me your business card. If you didn't bring a business card, just jot your email address down on a Post-it note, and when I get home tonight, I'll be happy to email it to you. But you feel free to take notes or just sit back and listen. And if you have questions, just raise your hand. I mean, don't save them for the end. Interrupt me. I'll be happy to take questions whenever. So does everyone have a postcard?
Yes.
So we got door prizes at the end of the presentation, so stick around. If your card doesn't feel lucky, you can trade it in before you scratch it off. But stick around and we'll give away some door prizes at the end. Three things I want to cover today in terms of branding and blogging. First is setting goals. We always start with setting goals because you want to know which direction you're headed in. You want to make sure that your blogging and your branding and your marketing efforts are as effective as they can be. Defining your values. What do you stand for? What does your brand stand for? What does your company stand for? What makes it different from your competitors out there? I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can dig in deeper into defining what your values are. And if you don't have a lot of resources, I got one secret weapon that's worked for me in the past, and that's consistency. So I'm going to show you how I've used it and how it applies to your blog and social media efforts and marketing in general. Starting out with setting a goal. I mean, we're at the beginning of the year. I'm assuming that maybe some of your organizations, companies, and groups have set some business goals for the year. You want to, increase revenue, or you want to increase sales, or you want to improve customer service, or something related to your business that you want to achieve in these 4 quarters. And so that's going to apply to your blog, depending on how you're using your blog. So first of all, how many of you have a blog for either yourself or for your company? How many of you are going to start one this year? How many of you are just thinking about it? Okay, so some of you are using your blog strictly as a marketing tool. You're showing off your products and your services. Or you're using it as content marketing. You're talking about issues that affect your customers and helping them solve issues and trying to draw them into your site. Or you're using it as a sales tool, or you're using it for customer service. It's a chance for people to ask questions and figure out what it is about your products and services that can help them out. So your blog fits into your marketing plan in some fashion. Some of it, I think for all of us, it's a work in progress. It evolves and changes with what our needs are, what our company's needs are, what our customers and our clients' needs are. So as you develop these goals, how are you going to use that blog to help fulfill the goals in terms of marketing or customer service or sales and so on? And how does the brand fit into this? Because with brands and blogging, they go hand in hand. And I'm going to talk about that as we go along, because I want you to be thinking about, how does this impact our brand? How does this affect how people think about who we are? What do they think of us? Is this helping us or is it hurting us? So I've been skinny most of my life, and it's challenging. You know, if you've ever had some part of yourself that you wanted to change and you got frustrated because no matter how much time and effort you put into it, nothing happened, then you can understand the frustration. I mean, you know, some people don't think that being skinny is a problem. It's a problem. But I read this book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Body, and I thought it's got some ideas and some projects in terms of losing weight, gaining weight, working out, nutrition, and so on. So I thought I had nothing to lose. So back in September of 2012, I thought I'd try it out. I would see if I could gain some weight. I'd see if I could gain some muscles, and I called it Project Bulk. And so I'd never worked out with weights before, never followed a diet before, and people told me, it's like, you know, it's sometimes it's tough to stick with it. And so I started the blog just for fun because I just needed some accountability. So I put it out there, and if you saw me slacking off, then it wouldn't just be me like in the corner hiding. I'd have to answer to people. But it was just for fun. It was straightforward, and so the goals were very basic. Could I gain some weight? Could I gain some muscle? Because everything I tried up until that point, and nothing had worked. And when I started out, I blogged every day, and then I cut back to blogging about once a week, and then I cut back to blogging once a month. And it's just because once I settled into the routine, all I had to do was update people on the numbers, like my current weight and how many calories I had eaten and how many times I worked out and so on. So I just started cutting back on the blogging. But that first 6 months or so, I mean, probably put up like 40 or 50 posts. And in the first 6 or 12 months, I gained 20 pounds. I gained like 17% of my total mass. Never had happened to me before. And then in like the next 6 or 8 months, I dropped the 20 pounds, but I managed to hang on to the muscle, so I improved my body fat percentage, and so it was working well. I mean, it was a lot of big changes, but it was fun to do, and it was fun to share with people, because again, I just never tried any of this before. So I just started this in September of 2012, and about spring of 2013, I noticed something different, and it was this. When I go out to events like this, or networking functions, or business meetings, normally people come up and just make small talk and ask me how I'm doing. And people were starting to come up to me and say, "Hey, Wade, how's Project Bulk going?" And they were genuinely interested. Now, they probably hadn't read all of those posts. They might have skimmed one, or they might have seen me share it on social media, but I wasn't like in people's faces talking about it. Like I wasn't talking about, "Hey, have you heard about paleo? Let me tell you in excruciating detail how the diet works, whether you're interested or not." I didn't want to be that person, so I just shared it occasionally, but it was just one of the things I was doing. But it kind of caught on when people were following me, and it changed my brand. I'd worked years on developing this brand as a consultant and a communications expert and a blogger and a social media person. And now people are coming up to talk to me about fitness, diet, nutrition, exercise. And I was no more an expert than anyone else. I mean, I've been at it for 6 months, so I knew as much as anyone. If you aren't deliberate about setting your goals and working on your blog and your brand, you might accidentally change your brand. You might change it for the better, you might change it for the worse. But it was eye-opening to find out that after just a few months and a handful of blog posts, people were looking at me differently. It wasn't a negative thing, but had I to do it over again, I think I would have been more careful about how it might impact my brand as a professional and as a person. So as you set your goals, they got to be measurable. There got to be numbers behind them. You want to increase sales by X thousands of dollars by the end of 2016, or you want to increase the number of leads coming in through your site, or you want to increase customer satisfaction, or you want to decrease wait times for callers on the helpline. You know, sometimes you're usually you're measuring around money or time, money in terms of revenue, money that you're trying to save, time that you're trying to save, deadlines that you're trying to make. And they, again, will be tied to your blog as well. So if you're using your blog for customer service, you know, are you creating the right kind of posts? Are they getting the right kind of traffic figures? What are the numbers associated with your blog? And we'll go into a little bit more detail about how it impacts your brand. It's helpful to break it up into steps. So that way, instead of just focusing on the goal at the end of the year or 2 years down the road, you've got steps to work on every day, every week, every month. What's the easiest way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So setting those interim deadlines, setting it into action steps will make your lives easier as you're pursuing these big goals. Like, you know, when I started Project Bulk, you know, I didn't do it all on day one. I had to go out and learn how to do these exercises and figure out if I was going to join a gym or if I had to buy the equipment, and I had to go buy protein powder and learn how to make protein shakes and the whole 9 yards. And it took day after day after day, but each day I was making a little bit more progress. So be thinking about, as you set your goals, that they're measurable and that they're in steps that you can handle. When you get your goals completed, you got to figure out what you stand for as a brand. What are the values that define your brand, your company, your products, your services, your image? It's perception. No matter how carefully you craft your brand for public consumption, ultimately it comes down to what people think your brand is. You can tell that I use Apple products. I'm working on a MacBook, and I've got an iPhone, and I've used Apple products for a long time. So what shaped my perception of Apple's brand is I've been using them since 8th grade. I've used a lot of their products, spent gobs of money on their stuff. And so I've got both joy from using their products, but also like frustration when they don't work as they should. Your perception of Apple may come from using their products, may come from using their competitors' products. It may come from your spouse or your colleague using their products. It may come from all of their marketing in mass media. But we all come away with different perceptions of what Apple's brand really is. You're probably working very hard and very diligently to make sure that your company has got the best brand out there. But how aware are you of what people think of your brand, and does it match up? A while back, I tried online dating. I was on Match.com and I was on eHarmony. And if you've never done it before, it's real simple. You sign up, you give them your credit card info, you fill out a profile. It only takes a few minutes. I mean, the questions are so simple a 5-year-old can answer. What's your name? How old are you? How tall are you? How much do you weigh? What do you like to eat? What's the last book you read? What do you do? What are you looking for? So I filled out a profile and started looking at the profiles. And so I was I'm interested in women, so I'm looking at women's profiles. So I never saw any men's profiles. So I didn't know if my profile was good or bad or so-so. But I was looking at all these profiles, and I noticed that after I looked at like a couple of dozen, I wouldn't remember much about the last few that I'd looked at. They just kind of blurred together. Like, I'm sure they were perfectly fine people, but their profile just didn't stand out in any way, shape, or form. And then I started to wonder if my profile had fallen into that same predicament, because when I reached out to people, I wasn't necessarily getting a lot of responses. People weren't necessarily reaching out to me, and so I thought, well, maybe I didn't fill out my profile correctly. So I let my friend Jen look at it, and she's known me since high school, so she knows me really well. She also happens to be an ad agency veteran and a marketing expert and a branding expert. And so she looks through it, and she just shakes her head, And she said, this is terrible. uh, and she said, you are afraid to put yourself out there. You're afraid of being rejected. And she pointed out different problems. Like she said, you know, here you say you like music. No big deal. Everyone here likes music. But is music Taylor Swift? Or is it Kanye West? Or is it Tchaikovsky? Or is it bluegrass? Because it's all music, but there were no specifics. You know, and she pointed out, like I said, I like movies. Well, big deal. Everyone here probably loves movies. But then when you're talking about a favorite actor, a favorite genre, favorite time period, a favorite style, I mean, it's a wide category. So, you know, I took what she said to heart. I mean, it was hard to hear, but she was correct. So I sat down and went through the profile again, and you know, the sad thing is I'm a writer, and I did such a terrible job the first time, so I was really going to put some time and effort into this version. And so I thought carefully about every question and every answer and filled it out again. And before I posted it, I showed it to her, and she read over it and she said, this sounds like you, this is you. And so I had passed that time. And she pointed out something, which is, so you know, I had my true self profile up there, and she said, you're not going to hear from very many people, and it's because the ones who reach out, they're the ones who might have a real connection with you. But it's better than if they just reach out to that mirage that I had created in the first place. We are all afraid at some point of putting our true brand out there, of being mocked, of being rejected, of being passed over, of being ridiculed. I mean, it's tough out there. So I'm not going to say that those things won't happen. But the alternative is we take all the rough edges off our brand and we start to blend in with everyone else. And so no one notices us in the sea of competitors. We're just average. We're not memorable. We start to blur together with everyone else. You've got to be willing to make sure that your brand is well defined, that it stands for something, and that it's out there. When you're trying to figure out your brand values, you can sit down with an ad agency, you can sit down with a branding company, you can sit down with my company. Jen runs branding evaluations. And they take you through a process so that you have a well-defined brand through this evaluation. And so when Jen's done it for quite a few of our clients, big clients, small clients, so on. And so I made her take me through the process of branding. And so she found out my brand values, which are involved, honest, smart, funny, and articulate. Cut off at the bottom of the screen. Now, you've only heard me speak for about 15 minutes. So these are just words on a screen. You don't actually know if they apply to me. I can swear up and down that it's accurate, but right now it's just words on a screen. Unless I embody these values perfectly, it's hard to tell. Articulate, I'm sure you'll give that one to me because no one's raised your hand and said, please repeat the last thing you said because I didn't understand it. Honest, well, I'm sitting here talking about these misadventures in branding and online dating profiles and trying to gain weight. Smart, at least smart enough to learn from what has gone right and what has not worked and being able to adjust on the fly. Funny, that's in the eye of the beholder. I still got another 10 minutes to make you laugh. Involved, I like being able to talk to different groups about blogging, branding, marketing, and hearing your questions and your insights and sharing ideas and different approaches. But it reminds me of my last trip down here, which is simply that being able to work with hands-on was a memorable experience, and it's safe to say that I probably put in more volunteer hours in Biloxi than I have in my hometown of Birmingham, which I guess is good for Biloxi and probably not so good for Birmingham. But involved, honest, smart, funny, articulate. Those are my brand values. Those are what I try to put into the things that I do so I stand out from other speakers, other social media folks, other bloggers, and so on. If you're not sure you have the resources to work with an agency, let me give you an alternative to figuring out those brand values. Convene a focus group to narrow it down to those 3 to 5 adjectives that mean something about your brand. That focus group is going to be your biggest fans, your most loyal customers, your veteran colleagues, the people who really have a stake in what your company is and what it does. You put them in a room together and you have them list adjectives, positive and negative, about what your brand means to them. What do they think your brand is? And just start writing them down on a chalkboard or on a whiteboard so everyone can see them. And so you're going to have this list of adjectives, positive and negative. And you should get at least 50 to 100. So you've got this group that's rattling off adjectives about your brand, and you've got this long list, 50 to 100 adjectives. When you get that list, every member of the focus group picks their top 3. They can write it on a slip of paper. They can just go up to the chalkboard and put tick mark by 3 of their top adjectives until everyone votes. Or you can take that entire list of adjectives, put it in an online survey, send the survey out to your email list or to your Facebook fans or to your customer database and have them vote. Top 3, 4, or 5 adjectives are your brand values from that group. Through that close examination, that is the way to determine it. The problem is, if the brand values that they come up with don't match what you thought your brand stood for, you've got a big problem on your hands. And you've got your work cut out for you in terms of reconciling the two. But if they match, you're in good shape. But that's an opportunity for you to create your own branding profile by using people inside and outside of your organization. Does that make sense? And I've even had personal bloggers go through it. They just take their friends and family members and loyal readers and just do it for their blog. I mean, that's how simple it can be.
Can you do the internal and external at the same time? That's different.
I'd try and do it all at once.
All at once.
Yeah. But I tend to put more weight, and this is just me, I just tend to put more weight on external. Just because I'm curious as to what do the customers really think, what do the fans really think, what are they picking up on that maybe I'm too close to? I think veteran employees will have some good insights, but they might be too close to it. It's hard to say. But I want you to consider including them because I think they'll at least have seen the evolution of the brand over time. It may have started out over here and now it's something semi-different. So in working with your blog and your brand, you set your goals, you define your brand values, and then you work on consistency. I use consistency in a lot of things I do because it's relatively easy to implement. It takes some coordination, but it's cost effective and it's effective in general. And let me dig deeper into that so you can understand what I'm talking about. 5 years ago this month, I and some friends started a nonprofit group in Birmingham. It's called the Alabama Social Media Association. Simple premise: educate people in social media. That's it. And we started on January 2nd, 2011, so 5 years ago this month, and we gave ourselves a short window. We said by March 1st we would launch and announce our first event. So this is the website. This is the Eventbrite page where we had our events. That's our Facebook page and our Flickr account where we had our photos, and our Twitter account. And you can see on every outlet we've got some version of our logo. We got the long version, Alabama Social Media Association, which is a handful, and we've got the short version, Al-SOCME, which is on the silhouette of the state of Alabama. And so you can see all the colors and design ties together across all of these different channels. So wherever someone would find us, they could identify us immediately. Does anyone want to take a guess as to how long it took us to put this logo package together and how much we spent on it? Someone in here has got to be a designer or has that eye. Take a wild, wild guess. 6 weeks and how much money? Yeah. Any other guesses? I heard part of that. The week before launch, this is the last week of February, the designer fell through. We didn't have a logo. We're about to launch, and we don't have anything we don't have a visual element, which is important. And so I stupidly volunteered and said, look, we need a placeholder logo, and then once we get through the launch phase, we'll find another designer and we'll replace the logo with a professional design. So I opened up Photoshop, and 10 minutes later, they popped out these logos. They look like some rank amateur opened up Photoshop and popped them out 10 minutes later. And what galls me is 5 years later, it's still the logo. We never did get a designer to fulfill that logo. But when we launched on March 1st, and we launched on social media, we launched the website, we launched the first event, we were on 2 morning shows in Birmingham, we sold out of tickets in an hour and a half. You can fuss over the logo and the design and the color scheme for hours and days and weeks. I've been in plenty of arguments in newsrooms and magazines and with art colleagues and editorial colleagues and marketing folks. And it's an argument you can never win because it's just opinions. I like this color, I like this font, don't like this color, I don't like that font. It's just feelings. As mediocre as that logo is, that's not what sold the organization. What sold the organization was people were hungry for education in social media, and we were providing it for free, with a free lunch, with a free speaker, at a convenient location. That website, that's not the website we launched with. The day before launch, February 28th, the agency that was working on it fell through. We were going to be on TV, we had a URL, and we had no place to send people. And so I stupidly said, I will put something together to get us through this. And there's no screenshot of it because it's that ugly. I was up till 3 or 4 in the morning hand coding the website. It was just the logo, our mission statement, a link to Facebook, a link to Twitter, a description of our first speaker, and the ticket window. That's it. That's basically all we needed. Thank goodness we had something functional. But again, we weren't going to win any awards or accolades over that first website. But we did roll out a consistent, well-branded message across multiple platforms, including traditional media, that got people's attention and got them excited about social media education and this nonprofit group that they had never heard of. Not only did we sell out of tickets, we got 17 partner organizations. We got a venue sponsor. We got catering sponsors. We got cash sponsors. And part of it is just having a good, solid, consistent message and brand. You have to show up. You can't just create the blog and post twice a year. Consistency means at least once a month. It means that if people are going to leave comments, you respond to them. Your brand is being defined even if you do nothing. So if you set up a Facebook page for your company, it might be beautiful. It might have perfect branding and perfect alignment with your assets, with your website, with your print materials, and so on. And if you never update it, and if you never respond to the customers who have questions or complaints or suggestions, they've got a very good idea of what their brand means to them, and it's not good. You have to show up. You have to be present. That's the first part of consistency. You know, you got that list of 50 to 100 adjectives. If you do your own focus group on branding, temptation is to make it a list of 10, to make it a list of 20. You can't be all things to all people. You got to stand for something, or else you stand for nothing. Honest, smart, funny, involved, articulate. It's just enough that I can keep all 5 brand values in mind. But it's because I want everything I do to resonate with those brand values. This 35-minute talk has got to be all of those things. The blog posts I write has to be all of those things. The tweets that I write over time have to reflect that. If they don't, you have no sense as to what my brand is. You have no idea if you should connect with me. You have no idea what I have to offer, or if I can even help you with anything that you're working on. Imagine trying to do that with 10 values. Imagine trying to do that with 20 values. When people go to your blog, that might be the only post they see. That's your one chance to at least show what your brand is and capture their attention. And if it's a good fit, they might stick around. If it's a bad fit, they'll move on, which is fine. Y'all probably will live to 150. And this might be the only time you see me speak in person, which means that I've got to make sure that every minute counts, that it's somehow funny or smart or articulate or involved or honest, so that you come away with the right impression of who I am, what I stand for, what my brand is. Make sure that once you define your brand values, they seep into everything that you do. Printed material, commercials, direct mail, email blasts, videos, Instagram, however you're reaching out to people, through your blog or through other channels, make sure it reflects your brand. If you have questions and you don't think of them today, you can email me at wade@wadekwon.com, the website y'allconnect.com, and you can tweet me your question or direct message your question at Wade on Tweets if you don't have a question in the next 120 seconds.
Wade, so
Yeah.
you briefly mentioned frequency of blog posts. And I know that there's all kind of different wisdom on frequency of blog posts, like you're on Facebook and those kind of things. Is there, for a business communicating to the consumer, is there any sort of guideline for frequency? Should a blog post go out weekly, monthly? I think you said monthly earlier, daily?
All right, so the question is, how often do you blog, correct?
Right.
How often do you blog?
I don't right now.
Okay. What's your gut telling you?
It seems very, very dependent on the business and specifically what market, the content of the blog. In other reading of blogs on blogging, daily is actually sort of what sticks in my mind.
This is my controversial answer, and I'm going to shorten it because we're just about out of time. And this is the rule I apply to blogging. This is a rule I apply to social media. This is a rule I apply to email. Email's just weekly for me, just because I've got 2 email newsletters. That's all I can handle right now. But like if you follow me on Twitter, or if you subscribe to any of my blogs, I basically blog as frequently as I have time, and I tweet as often as I can, which is like 10 to 20 tweets a day. Some of them are at replies, so you might not see them. But the reason why it's controversial is because I'm going to throw as much material as I can at you, and the moment you don't want it anymore, just unsubscribe. It's no big deal. you're busy, you've got a life, you may not want to see that much from me, that's cool. But if you're really into it, then there's no amount that I can throw at you that will be satisfactory. And that's the challenge. You've got to write stuff that's really, really compelling, that people really, really love. I mean, like, talk about like Game of Thrones level intensity. I mean, how many of you actually watch Game of Thrones? How many of you wish it was on right now and you were watching it and it was brand new and you're catching up and solving some of the mysteries from last season? I mean, it's that good, right? That's the level you got to be at to catch people's attention and to make them passionate about what you do, because you want them to love your product, you want them to love your service, you want them to love your brand.
All right, so you're doing a blog.
Yeah.
Let's just use the one you showed us. You were trying to gain some weight and bulk up. A, how do people find out about that? What did you do? I mean, obviously you throw it out there on the web. You know, you're one of a gazillion pages. How does somebody find your blog?
All right, so if you start a blog, how do people find it? That's a great question, because promotion is one of the most neglected areas of blogging. A lot of bloggers assume once you publish it, your job is done. You're half done. You've created the content, you put it out there. The next step, you got to put it out there for people to see. So here are some options for promoting your blog. Business card, email signature, your social media channels, your customer database, face-to-face. You buy ads on Facebook. You buy ads on Google. You mentioned it in your TV commercials. You mentioned it in your print ads. You promote it the way you promote an event, the way you'd promote a new product, the way you'd promote a new salesperson. You got to be creative. You can do personal outreach. Like, there are probably several communities of bloggers in Biloxi, and if they align with what your company offers, you can host an event for those bloggers. Those are happening more and more in Birmingham.
You included the one I was looking for, because I'm a TV guy.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe the best way to push people to new media is using old media.
When I talk to clients, we always talk about the mix of what they're doing in terms of marketing. I come from a print background. I worked at magazines and newspapers, so I have a soft spot in my heart for print media, despite the state that it's in these days. When you're thinking about your blog and your brand, it goes way beyond just color palette and font choice and logo design and so on. Set your goals, define your values, be consistent in putting your brand out there. I may have been blogging a long time, but you're going to pick up on it much quicker than I did, and you're going to be able to use that to propel your brand out way beyond your competitors so that it stands out, it's memorable, and it connects with the correct audience. Thank you.